The first time the alien woman spoke to him, it was not dramatic. There were no alarms, no flashing lights, and no tense diplomatic gestures. It happened during a quiet rotation on the shared station, where humans and non-humans moved through wide halls filled with soft lights and artificial gravity. The human's name was Daniel Mercer. He was not a soldier, not a hero, and not anyone important in the usual way. He worked as a systems analyst, helping translate human technical processes into formats the interstellar consortium could understand. It was steady work, safe work, the kind of job no one noticed unless something went wrong. Daniel liked it that way. He was seated at a public rest area, reviewing a data pad and sipping a warm drink made from synthesized coffee beans, when a shadow fell across the table. He looked up, expecting to see another human or maybe one of the insectoid traders who often lingered nearby. Instead, he saw her. She was tall, taller than most humans, with smooth skin that shifted color slightly depending on the light. Her eyes were large and reflective, more silver than white, and her hair was a long, dark crest that flowed down her back like liquid fabric. She wore a simple diplomatic garment that marked her as a visitor of status, though her posture was relaxed. She studied him for a moment, not rudely, but with careful interest. "Daniel Mercer," she said, pronouncing his name perfectly. "You are currently unoccupied." Daniel blinked. Yes, I mean I'm on break." "That will suffice," she replied. "I wish to speak with you." He gestured to the empty seat across from him. "Sure." She sat, folding her long limbs with practiced grace. For several seconds, she simply looked at him, her eyes flicking over his face, his hands, his posture. Daniel resisted the urge to fidget. Finally, she spoke. "My name is Sarathiel," she said. "I am an envoy of the Lyrian Conquered." Daniel nodded. He had heard of her species. Long-lived, highly logical, emotionally restrained by human standards, known for treating relationships as practical arrangements rather than personal bonds. "I have reviewed your service record," Sarathiel continued. "You are considered reliable, emotionally stable, and adaptable." "Thank you," Daniel said, unsure if it was a compliment. "I am currently engaged in prolonged negotiations," she said. "My species has found that temporary bonding arrangements with compatible individuals increase cognitive efficiency and reduce mental strain." Daniel's brow furrowed. "Bonding arrangements?" "Yes," she said calmly. "Shared companionship, regulated proximity, mutual consideration. No expectation of permanence." There was a pause. Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it. "Are you saying—" "I am proposing such an arrangement with you," Sarathiel finished, her tone completely neutral. "It would last for the duration of my assignment." "Estimated length, 4 standard months." Daniel stared at her. People passed by. A pair of reptilian traders discussed cargo shipments. A human technician laughed at something on his comm device. No one seemed to notice that an alien diplomat had just casually proposed something that sounded a lot like a relationship. "You're proposing," Daniel said slowly, "like a partnership?" "Yes." "Like dating?" Sarathiel tilted her head slightly. "If that is your cultural equivalent, then yes." Daniel leaned back in his chair and exhaled. "Wow, is this unacceptable?" she asked, genuinely curious. "No," Daniel said quickly. "I mean, I don't know, it's just unexpected." "That is understandable," she said. "You may take time to consider." Daniel looked at her again, really looked. She wasn't smiling, she wasn't flirting. There was no manipulation in her posture or voice. She was making the proposal the same way one might suggest a shared work schedule. "Why me?" he asked. "You meet the criteria," she said. "You are human. Humans demonstrate a unique tolerance for emotional proximity without immediate distress. You also possess no political influence that would complicate the arrangement." Daniel winced. "That's reassuring." She did not react. He rubbed the back of his neck. "What would this arrangement involve?" "Shared meals when schedules allow," Sarathiel said. "Private living quarters, conversation, mutual support, physical contact only with explicit consent. Emotional attachment is neither expected nor discouraged, though it is typically minimal." Daniel's heart beat a little faster. He wasn't sure why. "And at the end," he asked. "It concludes," she said, "without conflict." Daniel thought about his life, long shifts. Quiet evenings, messages from family light years away. He thought about how calm she seemed, how respectful. He smiled, small and uncertain. "Okay," he said, "I'll do it." Sarathiel's eyes widened just a fraction. "You accept?" "Yes." "Very well," she said. "I will notify the station coordinator." She stood, then paused. "Thank you, Daniel Mercer," she added. "I anticipate optimal results." She walked away, leaving Daniel staring at his empty coffee cup, wondering what he had just agreed to. That evening, Daniel was reassigned to a shared living space designated for diplomatic partnerships. It was larger than his previous quarters, with soft lighting and adjustable environmental controls. When he arrived, Sarathiel was already there, standing near the window that looked out into the endless starfield. "You may adjust the gravity to your preference," she said without turning around. "It's fine," Daniel replied. "This is fine," she nodded. They stood in silence for a moment, not awkward but unfamiliar. "I want to be clear," Daniel said gently. "If at any point you're uncomfortable, we talk about it." Sarathiel turned to face him. "Agreed, that is standard," he hesitated. "Also, I take this seriously." Her expression shifted, subtle but noticeable. "Define seriously." "I mean," he said, choosing his words carefully, "I don't treat people like temporary tools. Even if this has an end date, I want it to be real, respectful." Sarathiel studied him for a long time. "That is inefficient," she said slowly. Daniel chuckled. "Yeah, humans are like that." She did not smile, but something in her gaze softened. "Then we will proceed," she said, "according to your customs as well as mine." That night they shared their first meal together. The food was simple, prepared to accommodate both species. Daniel explained human expressions. Sarathiel explained Lyrian social structures. They spoke about stars, time, and how humans measured days in ways that still confused most of the galaxy. Sarathiel observed him constantly, how he listened, how he waited before speaking, how he reacted to her words with interest rather than judgment. This was not typical. Most species entered bonding arrangements expecting efficiency and detachment. Humans, she was learning, did neither. As the days passed, the arrangement settled into a quiet rhythm. Daniel asked how her meetings went. Sarathiel asked about his work. He remembered things she mentioned once and never repeated. She began to notice the absence of calculation in his care. She had expected companionship. She had not expected attention. And Daniel, for his part, realized something surprising. He did not feel like this was temporary. Not because he believed it would last forever, but because, in the moment, it mattered. To him, that was enough. And somewhere deep in the station's endless corridors, the galaxy began to misunderstand humans all over again. The arrangement did not change Daniel's daily routine as much as he expected. He still woke at the same hour, still reviewed system reports, still walked the long, curved halls of the station with quiet focus. What changed was that now, someone noticed those routines. Sarathiel observed everything. She noticed how Daniel paused before leaving the room, checking that environmental controls were balanced for both of them. She noticed how he adjusted his pace when walking beside her, never rushing, never forcing her to match his stride. She noticed how he asked questions not to gather information, but to understand. At first, she recorded these observations mentally, the way her species always did. Patterns mattered, behavior mattered. Emotions were secondary effects, usually ignored unless they interfered with efficiency. But with Daniel, the emotions did not interfere. They enhanced. Each shared meal became a quiet ritual. Daniel would prepare his human food while she arranged hers, both working in the same space without needing to speak much. When they did speak, it was easy, natural. He told her small stories about Earth, about rainstorms and open skies, about how humans still found comfort in things that could not be optimized. Sarathiel listened closely. On her homeworld, silence was common, but it was rarely shared. Silence usually meant distance. With Daniel, silence felt full. One evening after a long diplomatic session, Sarathiel returned to their quarters later than expected. Her posture was tense, her shoulders held higher than usual. Daniel noticed immediately. "Long meeting?" he asked softly. "Yes," she replied. "Unproductive." He nodded and did not ask more questions right away. Instead, he set aside what he was doing and offered her a warm drink, carefully adjusted to her species' needs. She accepted it without comment, but her fingers lingered on the container longer than necessary. "You don't have to talk about it," Daniel said, "but if you want to, I'm here." That simple sentence caused a brief pause in her breathing. On the station, many species offered support. It was often conditional, strategic, balanced against favors and expectations. Daniel's offer had no weight behind it, no demand. "I will explain," she said, surprising herself. One of the delegates questioned my judgment for entering this arrangement. Daniel frowned slightly. Why? They believe humans are emotionally unpredictable, she said. They suggested that such proximity could weaken my negotiation stance. And does it? Daniel asked. Sarathiel considered the question carefully. No, she said, it does not. Daniel smiled, relieved. Good. She watched that smile closely. Humans displayed emotions openly, without shame. It was still strange to her. Fascinating. Over the following weeks, others on the station began to notice the change as well. Daniel and Sarathiel moved together naturally, without announcement or display. There was no performance to their partnership, no need to prove it. That, more than anything, unsettled the other species. Humans were known for emotional bonds, yes, but they were also known for chaos, for passion that burned fast and bright. What they were witnessing now was different. This was steady. One Lyrian observer recorded that Daniel showed consistent emotional presence regardless of outcome or reward. That note circulated quietly through consortium channels. Sarathiel read it later alone. She did not delete it. One night cycle, Daniel found Sarathiel standing near the viewport again, staring into the stars. She had taken to doing that often. Thinking? He asked. Yes, she said. About time. That sounds dangerous, he joked gently. She tilted her head, then said, Your species measures time strangely. You invest heavily in moments you know will end. Daniel leaned against the wall beside her. That's kind of the point. That is illogical. Maybe, he admitted, but it makes those moments matter. She looked at him then, really looked at him. The faint lines near his eyes, the calm in his posture, the quiet certainty. I am not accustomed to mattering, she said. Daniel's expression softened. Everyone matters. She did not argue, but the words stayed with her long after he left for his shift. As days passed, the arrangement continued to deepen in ways neither of them had expected. Daniel never crossed boundaries. He never assumed. Every touch, even small ones, came with awareness. When Sarathiel rested longer in the shared space, he adjusted his schedule without complaint. When Daniel grew tired, she reminded him to rest. It was mutual, balanced, real. Sarathiel began to experience something unfamiliar. She found herself anticipating his presence not for efficiency but for comfort. She noticed his absence when he was gone. These were not reactions her species prepared for. She researched them privately. Human psychology files were extensive. Terms appeared often: attachment, affection, love. She dismissed the last one quickly. Love was not efficient. Love was not temporary. And yet, one evening, as they sat together reviewing unrelated data, Daniel laughed quietly at something on his screen. The sound caught Sarathiel's attention immediately. It was unguarded, genuine. She felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with biology. What is amusing? She asked. Just something I remembered, he said. From home, she waited. It doesn't matter, he added. It was just nice. Nice. The word echoed in her mind. That night after Daniel had gone to sleep, Sarathiel remained awake. She watched his slow breathing, the way his face relaxed when unconscious. He trusted the space, trusted her. Trust was rare. She realized then that the arrangement had already changed, quietly, without permission. Humans, she thought, did not wait for contracts to end before deciding what something meant. They decided while living it. And that realization unsettled her more than any diplomatic conflict ever had, because the arrangement still had an end date. And for the first time in her long life, Sarathiel was not certain she wanted that end to arrive. The station calendar moved forward without asking permission. For Daniel, time passed in familiar ways. Shifts ended. Reports were filed. Messages from Earth arrived late and incomplete, filled with family news that felt both close and far away. Life continued, shaped by routine and quiet moments. For Sarathiel, time had begun to feel different. She noticed it in small ways at first. The way she counted cycles not by her work schedule, but by Daniel's presence. The way she listened for his footsteps when returning to their shared space. The way her thoughts returned to him during meetings, uninvited and persistent. This was not normal. Her species did not dwell on individuals. Bonds were functional, temporary, and controlled. Emotional attachment beyond necessity was seen as an imbalance, yet she felt balanced. That contradiction troubled her deeply. One cycle, while reviewing diplomatic projections, Sarathiel paused mid-analysis. The data blurred slightly. She realized she was thinking about the sound of Daniel's voice when he spoke softly, the way he lowered it when conversations turned personal. She closed the file. This will end, she reminded herself. The arrangement had a clear duration. The end date was approaching faster than expected. Daniel had not mentioned it, but she knew humans track time carefully. He was aware, and still he did not change. That was what unsettled her the most. Daniel treated each day the same. He continued to ask how she was, continued to listen, continued to care even as the end approached. There was no withdrawal, no emotional distancing, no preparation for separation. One evening, she finally asked. "Daniel," she said as they shared a quiet meal, "are you aware that the arrangement concludes in 17 cycles?" He nodded. "Yeah. You do not seem concerned." He considered his words. "I'm aware of it," he said. "Concern doesn't really change anything." "That is unusual," she replied. "Maybe," he said, "but I'd rather be present now than spend time worrying about later." Sarathiel stared at him. "You humans," she said slowly, "experience loss before it happens." Daniel smiled faintly. "Sometimes, but we also choose not to." She did not respond. The warmth in her chest returned, stronger than before, mixed with something heavier. Fear. That night she did not sleep. She reviewed her people's philosophy texts, searching for guidance. Emotional attachment was described as a biological artifact, something lesser species struggled with. Humans were mentioned often, usually with caution. None of the texts explained this feeling. She began avoiding Daniel slightly after that, not fully but enough that he noticed. He did not confront her, he adjusted. That too made it worse. When she returned late from meetings, he left meals prepared. When she grew quiet, he respected it. He did not demand explanations or reassurance. He simply stayed. One cycle, Daniel received a message from Earth. It was a simple recording from his sister, talking about their parents, about a storm that had damaged part of their home. He listened alone at first, then found himself replaying it while sitting beside Sarathiel. She noticed the change in his expression immediately. "Is something wrong?" she asked. He hesitated, then nodded. "Just missing home." She processed that carefully. "You may return after your assignment." "Yeah," he said, "eventually. You do not seem relieved." He shrugged. "Leaving things behind is never easy." She looked at him sharply. "Is that what this is to you?" He met her gaze. "No." The honesty in his voice struck her like a physical sensation. "What is it then?" she asked. Daniel took a slow breath. "It's important to me." Her chest tightened. That night she stood again at the viewport, staring into the endless dark between stars. Daniel joined her quietly, standing close but not touching. "You are troubled," he said. "Yes," she admitted. "Do you want to talk about it?" She turned toward him. Her eyes reflected the distant lights. "My people do not form permanent bonds," she said. "When this arrangement ends, I am expected to leave, cleanly." Daniel nodded. "I know. And you accept this." He paused. "I accept that it's your choice." Her breath caught slightly. "That is not an answer." Daniel looked at her gently. "I don't want it to end," he said, "but wanting doesn't mean owning." The words stayed with her long after he left, owning. Humans did not treat love as possession, they treated it as choice. Sarathiel realized something then, something frightening. She was choosing him, not because of duty, not because of efficiency, because she wanted to. That realization shook her more than any threat ever could. In the final cycles before the end date, Sarathiel struggled silently. She followed protocol, prepared reports, planned her departure. But she also memorized Daniel's habits, the way he leaned slightly when listening, the way he paused before speaking difficult truths, the way he never treated her as temporary, even when everything said she was. On the final scheduled day, she stood in the shared space, her belongings packed neatly. Daniel entered and stopped when he saw them. "So," he said quietly. "Yes," she replied. They stood there, the space between them heavy with unspoken words. "I want you to know," Daniel said, "whatever you decide, I'm grateful." She stepped closer. "Why?" "For this," he said. "For you." She searched his face, hoping to find expectation, pressure, demand. There was none. In that moment, Sarathiel understood humanity's true strength. They could love without trapping, care without control, offer everything and still allow freedom. Her voice was steady when she spoke. "My people have never stayed," she said. "But my people have never known this." Daniel's breath caught. "I am requesting," she continued, "to extend the arrangement without a defined end." The silence that followed felt endless. Daniel smiled, slowly, softly. "I'd like that." For the first time in her life, Sarathiel stepped into the unknown not because logic demanded it, but because her heart did. And the galaxy once again underestimated humans. The decision did not change the station immediately. There were no announcements, no official reactions, no alarms or celebrations. Life continued the same way it always had. Ships arrived and departed. Delegates argued politely in meeting halls. Data flowed through systems without pause. But for Daniel and Sarathiel, everything had changed. The first difference was silence. Not the uncomfortable kind, but the gentle kind that no longer carried uncertainty. When Sarathiel unpacked her belongings again, placing them carefully back into shared space, Daniel did not ask questions. He simply helped, adjusting shelves and storage so both of them fit naturally. No contract was signed. No duration was set. That absence felt heavier than any agreement. Sarathiel noticed it immediately. Her species relied on structure, on defined limits. Living without an end date felt like standing at the edge of an endless horizon, and yet she did not feel fear. She felt calm. In the following cycles, Sarathiel submitted a formal request to remain stationed longer than planned. The wording was precise, neutral, and professional. It listed benefits to diplomacy, continuity, and cultural study. It did not mention Daniel. The request was approved. That approval echoed quietly through diplomatic channels. Observers noticed. Analysts questioned it. A Lyrian envoy choosing to remain beyond assignment length was rare. Choosing to do so without strategic gain was unheard of. Sarathiel felt the weight of those unseen eyes, but she did not retreat. Instead, she leaned into something unfamiliar. Choice. Daniel noticed changes in her as well. She spoke more freely, asked questions not out of curiosity but personal interest. She laughed softly at first, then more openly, especially when Daniel shared small human stories that carried no importance beyond emotion. They developed routines that belonged only to them. Morning quiet time, evening walks along the station's outer corridor. Shared meals where conversation drifted naturally without purpose. For Daniel, the happiness was gentle, steady, and surprising. He had expected uncertainty, fear, doubt. Instead, he felt grounded. Sarathiel was not expressive in human ways. She did not speak dramatic words or make large promises, but she stayed. Every day she stayed. That was enough. One cycle, a diplomatic observer requested a private conversation with Sarathiel. The observer was older, respected, and known for strict adherence to Lyrian customs. "You have altered your trajectory," the observer said calmly. "Yes," Sarathiel replied, "for a human." "Yes," the observer paused, "you risk imbalance." Sarathiel considered that. "I have found balance. That is not the same." "It is better," she said. The conversation ended shortly after. No reprimand followed. Still, the message spread. Humans noticed too. Some watched with curiosity, others with quiet admiration, a few with confusion. Human relationships were already complex, but seeing an alien species engage so deeply challenged even their understanding. Daniel became a quiet example without meaning to. He did not boast, did not explain, did not defend. He simply lived. That was humanity's strength. One evening, Daniel and Sarathiel sat together near the viewport, watching distant stars drift slowly across the darkness. "Your people will study this," Daniel said. "Yes," Sarathiel replied. "They already are." "That okay?" She thought for a moment. "It does not concern me as much as I expected," he smiled. "You've changed." "So have you," she said. He laughed softly. "Probably." There was a pause. "Daniel," she said, her voice quieter than usual, "I have learned something important." "What's that?" "Love is not inefficient," she said. "It is stabilizing." He turned toward her. "That might be the most human thing you've ever said." She looked at him, eyes reflecting starlight. "Then perhaps humanity has more to teach than it realizes." Time continued. Months passed. The station became a place of subtle transformation. Other species began requesting human companionship during long assignments. Not contracts, not experiments. Choice. Reports circulated describing humans as emotionally resilient, capable of sustained care without expectation of control. That trait became valued. Humanity's reputation shifted. Not warriors, not conquerors, anchors. Daniel never read most of those reports. He was too busy living. Sarathiel, however, read them all. One cycle, she stood alone in their shared space, holding a small object Daniel had given her earlier. It was simple. A human keepsake, not valuable by galactic standards, meaningless to anyone else, everything to her. She realized then that love was not a sudden transformation. It was a series of quiet decisions made daily. Humans had known this all along. Later that night, she spoke. "My people will ask why I stayed," she said. "What will you tell them?" Daniel asked. "The truth," she replied. "That I chose to." He nodded. That was enough. Years later, long after their story became a quiet reference point in cultural studies, a simple observation remained. The alien woman had made a casual proposal, expecting efficiency and order. She found something else. Humanity did not change her with force, persuasion, or demand. They changed her by staying kind, staying present, and allowing her the freedom to choose love on her own terms. And in doing so, humanity reminded the galaxy of something it had forgotten. That love, freely chosen and quietly kept, was not weakness. It was strength, the strongest kind.